Welcome to another episode of the Board Game BBQ podcast. I am your host tonight. It is Mitch here, and I have a few of my bestest friends joining me. First up, we have the best podcaster in the business with a white Blue Yeti microphone. It's Sarah Green. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Mitch. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
I'm loving my new microphone.
I tell you what, it looks pretty hot. I'm a bit jealous.
Thanks.
And when I say a bit, I mean a lot. I've also got two of my good friends from Victoria on the tube with us tonight. It's Conor from Warrnambool. How you doing, Con?
Hi, Mitch. I can't believe you called me one of your best friends. I thought you didn't like me.
My friends list is pretty short.
So, if someone knows you, they're pretty much up
it's only a couple of months and they to remove themselves.
Would you have
voluntarily
put me in your top friends on MySpace?
I never got into MySpace. I'm a bit old for MySpace.
Oh, I loved MySpace. You could make people listen to your music, you know.
I would not have listened to yours, Sarah. Yeah. I'm skipping your page.
Rude.
And our fourth compatriot we have tonight is none other than the master of war games himself, Def. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How's Victoria? I know you're Queensland now. Brisbane. I said Victorians. I'm still getting Victoria in my head.
I know.
Relocated.
He is a Victorian in Queensland still, I guess.
Yeah. It doesn't help that I miss Victoria. So
you wouldn't miss it at the moment. It is terrible. Like weather-wise, is awful.
I was just at the beach having a swim the other day.
Oh, there you go. You are a Brisbaneite now. Then.
Oh man, it is like
a beach bunny.
Well, Warrnambool's crap weather all the time, so you only move there for the people. But it's like sideways rain and like 6 degrees in the morning. It's bad. It's real bad. Yeah. You made a good choice, my friend.
All I know is I've never been called a beach bunny before, so I'll add that to my list.
Yeah. You're welcome.
This is the first time for everything. We were tossing up. I was tossing up a family road trip in winter in June, July, Connor, and it was do the south coast of Australia or Cairns. I think you know which one we chose, right?
Yeah, that's because you also invited me to come to Cairns, so I imagine that's why you picked it.
Yeah,
I might just crash it.
Yeah, subtropical or freezing and horrible
or Arctic.
Yeah.
I know which one I'm picking. I'm definitely picking Cairns.
Yeah. So we should probably talk about some board games then, I guess. There's been a lot going on around the traps for the last week or so, or however long it's been since you've each been on the pod. So who wants to get us kicked off? Anyone want to talk about anything in particular? What have we been playing?
Well, I started the Aeon's End Legacy, the new one, Return to Gravehold. And I know, I think it's already been touched on the podcast, but I wanted to say some stuff too, because, oh my gosh, it is huge. I've never seen so much stuff in a box before. And Legacy games, they usually are large, but this is huge. I could not believe how many cards were in it. How many decks of cards are in it. It's insane. And then there's, and I don't want to spoil, I'm not going to spoil anything. I thought something was quite interesting about it. They've done this thing, right, where they've sort of tied people into playing two mages, like a pair of mages, like a duet of mages, right? Yeah. So, and tune out if you don't want spoilers, but there's really nothing to spoil because I'm only 2 in and I'm really not talking about anything that crazy. But in the New Age, they had Ilya and Kel, which were 2 mages that were really cool together because their abilities, they can swap spells back and forth between each other, which is really neat. It's really neat. It's really different, right? Because usually in Aeon's End, you just pick a mage and someone else picks a mage. It's whichever one you think's cool and off you go. And you just have to find out, do they go well together or do they not? I know sometimes you get 10 minutes in and you're like, have you got any heal? Because I don't have any heal.
I think in the original Legacy, you basically started with a blank canvas.
Yeah.
And so you sort of evolved the abilities of the mage as you went through the game. Yeah.
Well, there's that, but there's also not that. You start with 2 unique cards in this one instead of just 1. And there's also other things that you add to your mage that are going to strengthen the bonds between the people, that the 2 I don't want to say couples because some of them are like just friends or whatever. Like there's different relationships in the game that are going to sort of funnel you into playing with two particular mages.
Yeah, right.
Or
so if you
couple of mages.
So you wouldn't say that it's probably not recommended to do a true solo one mage off you go type thing.
Yeah, I think you'd kind of miss out. I think you'd kind of miss out on those on that relationship thing. And I think that most solo players do play with two mages anyway. So
I know I did the first time around.
Yeah. So that's probably fine. I guess the thing for me is that I find it's kind of cool when you're trying to just make two random mages work together. That's kind of an element that I like to the normal Aeon's End. So to have it like forced upon you to, use these two particular mages, I don't know. I'll see how it goes. I mean, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And I'm looking forward to it. And the two boss fights that we had so far were pretty epic.
It's interesting to say that because I may be bringing this discussion up later on in the show. I'm not going to say too much about that. But I have had a poke around in my copy, and one of the big things I noticed, and I'm assuming most people already knew this, but I don't dig too deep into the Kickstarter campaigns when they come out. I'm kind of like, want to have a general look at it, but I want most of the surprise to be once I get it, and I can discover those things as it happens.
Yeah.
So I was completely unaware that there's essentially like two different stories in this version. And the first thing you do when you open the box is choose, am I going to play this particular town or this particular town? I think they're towns. So which way did you go on that one?
You've clearly forgotten because it was so long ago, but when we had Sydney and Nick, Engelstein and Nick Little, they did say it was going to be like a
two-story sort of thing. Yeah, right.
They actually said that. So that's not a spoiler, so you're not spoiling that. But that was so
that's good.
long ago, right? So
I can't remember yesterday, let alone back then.
Yeah, exactly. So I chose one side. I thought that was really neat, I chose one particular side.
I'm leaning towards choosing. So if people know there's two sides, there's Gravehold and there's Azer, I think.
Yeah, Azer.
Yeah. So it's not really a big spoiler if it's already been told. That there's
Mitch,
different
what are you doing?
I've got any complaints.
Huge spoiler.
At Board Game Battle.
We've ruined the storyline altogether. Yeah, I chose Azer just for something different.
Well,
I guess
that's exactly what I was sort of leaning towards.
Yeah,
but I am curious to know, and maybe you'll know this if you've paid more attention than I have. Is it possible to play through? Say, I think I read somewhere you play through one, and then when you get to like the finale, you don't finish it. You play through the second one,
and then I like the way you said that. Finale. So fancy.
I can't work out how, but you said that right, but in a weird way, it didn't sound right.
Finale. I always say finale.
Yeah, that's how you say that word. That definitely is that word.
Finale. That sounds better.
I'm just following along the Connor's, the theme of mispronounce everything.
Hey, I am not possible. The guiltiest party when it comes to this. I'm just the most notorious.
It makes us unique.
Yeah.
But I've also read somewhere else that someone said, no, if you want to play both, you have to get a reset pack and play it. And I thought, well, that's a bit dicey if that's the case. I really hope you can play through both, because my intention is to play through one at least to a point and then try the other one from the other perspective
and switch it up. I
actually don't
know the
content.
answer.
That kind of seems like a big oversight, because I know with lots of legacy games you lock yourself out of some content, but that feels like that's half a game.
Yeah.
Oh, well, hang on. Well, let's take a step back for a second, because, I mean, with Aeon's End, when you finish the campaign, it's all your stuff. You open up everything, and you've got all the mages, and you got all the baddies, and you got whatever you want. You can play however you want. So it's not like you're going to miss out on that content. It's not like you're going to put those things away forever. And it's like, oh, we didn't get to those. So
true.
You just open it up, and you can play with it.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, though, if the story, if there's elements within the story that, you've already destroyed a card or whatever, and you need it then to play that other half. How will that pan out? I don't know. I hope it's not like that. I hope you can play through everything.
It would be good without a reset pack. I mean, I mean,
it would make sense to me.
It's good marketing, though, isn't it?
I saw sort of both. I did a little bit of research on Board Game Geek, and when I say a little bit, I mean probably about 3 minutes.
That's a lot for you.
Yeah, look, that's pushing the limits for me. I'd fallen asleep by then. But Yeah, it seemed to be pretty split between some people saying, no, you have to get a reset pack, and other people saying, no, you don't. You can play through both, and it should be fine. So I don't know. We'll just figure it out, I guess. We'll just wait and see.
Well, like with the first Legacy, I actually, because I played 2 mages, I actually played it through twice without resetting it. I just kind of did my own little reset. There was enough stuff there that I could easily do that and use the other 2 mages. The only thing with that was that I couldn't use the sticker abilities that I'd already put on the other mages.
Yeah.
Right? So I had to do new skills, but I would have chosen new skills anyway, because who wants to make 2 identical mages
Yeah, I mean,
if you're going to make a different mage? Yeah.
It takes the fun out of it if you're just repeating it. I mean, for me, it would. Like, I'd agree with you.
I agree.
If you're going to run through it again, you might as well experience all those other things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there'll probably be a way to do it.
I would have gone so bad that I would have to change it up just to try and see if I could get some other way to lose poorly. I know when I played the first one, there was a couple of scenarios where I messaged Sarah where I was playing the Legacy 1.
You were like on the edge of rage quitting.
I was on the precipice. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to drive around your house and throw this box through your front door at you.
This is your fault.
You did this to me, and I can't handle it. But no, I got through that, and I'm all right now. Yeah. Sorry, Def, you were about to jump in and say something.
I was just going to ask, because I've played through Aeon's End Legacy with my oldest daughter, and we recently started the core Aeon's End box. I'm just wondering, how much variety is there in the gameplay? Because there's so many expansions already, to keep going and not feel samey. I've seen one playthrough of somebody doing it online, and aside from having a nemesis that has some kind of different ability or works in a different way, the rest seems to be sort of repetitive. Now, having said that, as I said, we've gone through the entire first Legacy game and 2 or 3 games in the core box, and we're still happy to keep playing it. So I'm just wondering about the variety in all of these new expansions,
I mean, there's probably an element of that. Like if you might get to a certain point and go, okay, well, it's boss battles and it's deck building, and, I've seen quite a lot that this game has to offer. But you are sort of stepping back, like way back, because you've gone from Legacy, which had a lot of all these unique elements that were getting added to the game all the time. Then you've gone back to like the core. This is why I haven't bought the core set, actually, because it's a bit like buying base Dominion after you've played all the crazy wacky ones, like it's more basic. I've played it
is it?
on TTS. Yeah. I thought Rageborn was a bit kind of boring and
but I mean, my understanding is that Legacy starts very basic and introduces the rules, which is true up to a point. So we opted to start from there because it was Angie's first time playing Aeon's End, and I think that helped a lot.
Yeah.
And now in the core box, you have all the abilities or all the rules from the start, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see how much we keep playing it. I was just wondering if it gets, if people feel it gets a bit samey after a while, or there's enough variety there to keep it fresh and interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, it is a boss battle every time. It's going to be that same thing. But I will say that having bought like the New Age, there was, they introduced the expedition system. So there was a bit of a story, a bit of a campaign. You get treasures, you get, like these different bad guy cards to add to the Nemesis deck that get upgraded. So they do sort of mix it up. And then, of course, Outcasts, I don't want to spoil Outcasts, but there's a kind of a big difference with that one. So, they have added, I think they've certainly added more stuff to the game as they've added more core sets. But, the core of the game is still that whole boss battle thing. So I can understand people going, all right, that's it kind of thing. But for me, I'm obsessed with deck building, right?
And they do a great job to like keep the variety in the bosses and stuff, and they all have they interact in different ways and things. That's sort of interesting all the time.
And like I said, and maybe that was it. Maybe that was like the next frontier for them to do the whole mage, mages interacting more, which is seemingly what they're doing with this one. So
I haven't played it. In fact, I believe I might be getting my hands on it next weekend because Joe has very graciously offered me his copy with the reset pack. So for Aeon's End Legacy, not the new one. But it kind of reminds me of, I guess, Marvel Champions a bit, where you get to a point, I imagine, where you think, well, how are they going to change? How are they going to change the villain? How's the encounter set going to be different? How is this going to be different? I've played through 3 different campaigns. I've played through like 20 different villains and then different levels of villains, and it starts to go, oh well, it could get a bit samey, but I think developers are really, really good at tapping into the thematics of things. I know, like with Marvel, you go, oh, well, that's exactly how that person would work. I know with Kang, for example, he splits all the players off. Doesn't matter how many players they are. He splits them off into different timelines, and they can't interact with each other until they all conquer their own timelines, and then they come back together. So it's just little touches like that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that make me go, oh, so they know what they're doing. But that's okay for someone like me, and maybe with Aeon's End like you, Sarah, where we've played through it all and we can see the little differences. But when you're someone coming from the outside, it's like, well, how is that different from the one I just played? Or how is that different from the one that I'm going to purchase, or things like that? So I can understand why people might get a bit jaded or a bit suspicious, thinking it's a bit the samey.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like all of those games that sort of have this continual living story. It's like there's some of us who are super into it, like you are with Marvel Champions and I am with Aeon's End, who just want all of the things and like are really attached to all the characters. Or, or like you said, if you're just a dabbler, then you probably don't need that much. Like Def, you've now got like the legacy set and you've got the core set. That might be all you need, you know what I mean? And you can get it out and play a random boss battle every now and then or whatever. Like, it just depends on how into it you really are.
Yeah, that's right.
I suppose.
But you haven't been playing Aeons this week, Def. You have been playing something else that I believe is also a new arrival. What do you want to tell us about that?
I suspect you're talking about Carnegie.
Possibly.
Yeah.
No,
do it.
Mitch was talking about Uno version 2. That's what Mitch was
saying. So Carnegie arrived from the Kickstarter campaign this last couple of weeks. It's been fulfilling. I don't know if it arrived in the other parts of the world. I think it has, or is arriving now. So it's a Carnegie, for those that don't know, is an economic game. You are basically working through 20 rounds of actions, and in each round there's this company that you're trying to build up and create your own departments in the company, and then take actions, build some projects all over the United States, and also provide some donations that give you endgame points, etc. The interesting part about it is the game lasts 20 rounds, and in each round, the next player whose turn it is picks one of the 4 rows to do an action. And these rows, they're selected randomly at the start of the game, but essentially they're a sequence of one of the 4 available regions on the map, which is like the East, the South, the Midwest, and the Western United States. And there's also one more spot that is only about donations. And the row that you pick corresponds to one of the 4 actions that you can do in the game. Not one of the 4 actions, but one of the 4 types of departments. So you've got HR departments in the companies, you've got management, you've got construction, and you've got
research and development, R&D.
R&D, thanks. Yes. Yeah. So when you select, even from the action selection, the game has a great tension, because the way it works is the action you select, every other player gets to do actions in these departments. So in some cases, you'll be well placed to do that because you have staff, you have people, workers in those departments in your company, and maybe you've got a lot of them, both people and departments of that type. But other players may not even have workers in those departments, or they may not have additional departments of that type, because each company starts with one department from each one of these types, and that creates a great tension when you select the action. But also, by selecting the location at the same time, it gives people the opportunity to retrieve workers that have been sent on, the game calls it a mission, on that spot in previous rounds, and gain income. So if you don't have a worker there, then you miss out on that. If you do have workers there to retrieve, then you get in on the income action and that sort of stuff. And then the actions you can do is, move people around with HR departments. You can do construction of housing or commercial or public infrastructure buildings on the map in a kind of, I don't want to say ticket to ride fashion, but there is a small element of the game where you have to connect the 4 major cities, or as many as you can of the 4 major cities, to score extra points at the end. And yeah, the game is very, very good. It has what I like in most of these games, which is not obvious decisions, right? I didn't feel, game takes 20 rounds to play. I don't think I felt that, oh yeah, it's obvious what I have to do now in any of them. And that's a great thing. I've played it a few times now, and also you see how you can sort of get more efficient with the timing of the actions, which is absolutely critical. Now, I do think, and maybe I think, Sarah, you've played this a lot. I do think that it might be more interesting in 3 or 4 player count. I've only played at 2 player. And basically what happens at 2 player is you get a third player's non-used players' color discs, and you cover a few construction spots across the map. So some of them are blocked off, as well as some of the donation spots on the top that are not available for players, and that's pretty much it. But what I think would make it very different is if it's a 2-player game, when the opponent is taking an action, is selecting the action, and then you have to both take your actions for that department, then you can plan exactly what you want to do, because you know that you're the one that's picking the action in the next round. While if it's a 3 or a 4-player game, there's no way to know that. There's no way to guarantee that. So I think that would make it a lot more interesting, a little bit more tactical than strategic as well, which I think would add to the fun a lot. And the game has, I don't know how different the Kickstarter version is, but the version to retail, but the Kickstarter version has a lot of different departments in it, so you can sort of mix and match and have a different layout of available departments for people to build into their companies. But I think
even those action selections are randomized each time. There's those tiles that you choose at the start of the game for them going in. So there's actually a lot of variability from game to game.
There is, yeah, and there's even in the box, there's even 4 tiles with different types of donations that you can use as an alternative way of mixing up the game. So I was a little bit concerned after the second time I played it. I was a bit concerned that, this may start sounding or looking a bit same after a few plays. But a couple of games after that, I found that it is quite a challenge to try and become as efficient as you can with the timing of the actions and all that sort of stuff, even at a 2-player game. So I imagine its replayability will go up with more players. But it's been really, really fun. I think we're going to play this a lot, and I think it's going to be definitely one of the this year's hits for sure.
And you say 20 rounds, 20 turns, and I remember when I was reading the rulebook and got to that point, I was like, oh man, it sounds like it's going to be a long game, but it doesn't feel that long. it doesn't feel like you're playing 20 rounds as such. It's pretty snappy in terms of those turns going through.
It is, because it's one of those games where if you can do something, most of the times it makes sense that you would try and do it. So, for instance, if I choose the option to do construction, to use the construction departments in the company, and you have a couple of workers on construction departments in your company, and you have the resources to build something, then you most probably want to, because you know that that's going to increase your income. It's going to get you points at the end of the game. And that's the whole point of the game. It's trying to piggyback off of other people's selections as best as you can, but there's no way you can benefit from all of them. We've had turns where, one player picks an action and the other player does nothing because they didn't have people in those departments, or they've just used them in the previous round or whatever.
And that's why it's quick too, right? I mean, not everyone's making a decision. The first player's making the decision, everyone's following. So it's 20 decisions in the game, right? Instead, it's not 20 times 4.
Yeah,
it's just 20.
And with that comes a bit of stabbiness, right? Because I know when I was playing with Harry, I'd be looking across at his board and be like, he can't do HR right now. He can't do, whatever it is, the buildings or whatever. So I was like, well, I'm going to take that because it means I'm essentially getting a free go and he's wasting that turn.
It's very reminiscent of Puerto Rico. I don't know if any of you have played Puerto Rico.
I haven't played.
Okay, that's a similar thing. It's like you pick the action.
The follow mechanic,
Yeah, the follow mechanic. And if you choose the right thing at the right time, you can really stuff someone up. So,
have you played it with 3 and 4 players?
I have, and I agree with you. It's a lot tighter. If you play with 4 players and they really know what they're doing, it's possible to actually have those donations just completely fill up.
Yeah, very
and
quickly,
you have money to make one, and you can't, and the map as well, blocking each other out of the being able to connect up. Yeah.
So with the I choose you follow type actions, is there any benefit to you being the one that takes the action? Because I know in a lot of these games it will be, I'll take the action, I will get maybe like the A version of this action, and everyone else can take the B version.
Ability.
No. The inferred benefit is that you've prepared for it, and you know that based on your player board, you can do the most things or the most beneficial things, in HR or in R&D. So you choose that. So that's
and as you sort of individualize your company board, so you can change the actions and things that take place for each particular action type based on how many different departments you've got on your board. So for you, Connor, HR might not be that great because you haven't really developed your HR side, but then the person who follows you is stacked out in HR, so they've got heaps they can do. I think that's good how it gives you, each person kind of individualizes each of their actions and what they get out of each one.
And also sometimes if you don't have money to activate your employees, right? So your employees are basically laying down in the department. You have to activate at the end of your turn. You have to pay for them. You have to pay their wages or whatever, and then stand them up so that they're ready. So sometimes someone's even got their meeples there, but they haven't paid them yet because of whatever reason. They need to do something else first. And then you see that and you can leverage that and go, all right, well, I'll do my HR action now, because even though my HR action is weaker than theirs, their people aren't ready.
They don't have the money to. Cool.
Yeah.
No, that sounds pretty good. I've got it. I unwrapped it. I don't know if there's anything to punch, but it was one of those things where I just was in the headspace to go through it and be like, So I unwrapped it, looked at the rule book, and I thought, I'm going to watch a video on how to play this game because I can't be bothered reading a rule book at the moment. So.
Yeah, look, it's not a very complex game. Yeah. Like it's pretty straightforward, and the iconography is good, and I mean the game is gorgeous. Ian O'Toole has done a phenomenal job with the graphic design again, and I think our last game took an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, cool.
So it's not a super long game by any measure, It's because the actions are quick, and like Sarah said, you don't make all of these decisions throughout every single turn, because the other players make a decision about what action to take, and therefore your decision space in other players' turns is specific. It's more about, not doing something in that turn rather than actually doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this solo mode is very smooth.
I haven't played it solo yet, but I've seen the rules and it looks quite good to run. Yes.
Yeah, it's essentially a deck of cards that plays the solo, and based on if a certain condition can be met to take an action, he'll do that. Otherwise, he'll take victory points. So it's pretty easy. Big sort of heavy games like that, I always worry about how cumbersome the solo mode is going to be. Whereas for a game that size and that weight, I think it does a really good job.
I think Def's right. I don't think the game is really that I don't think it's as complex as maybe I thought it was. Going into it.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest, I think the most time spent thinking in that game is just about, like, when I do research and development, what I want to spend my research and development points on, because that's kind of a neat part of the game, and the way to differentiate yourself, right, Def, is like upgrading those, both what your meeples will actually take with them when they return from their missions, that gets upgraded on these little tracks, one for each kind of area of the US. And then there's also, depending on whether you're like building infrastructure or residential buildings or commercial buildings, you actually upgrade your tracks on those as well, which are like income tracks, and you can open that up to getting a lot of points, victory points as well. So that's sort of where I spend most of my time thinking, to be honest. I usually know what actions I want to do. That's pretty easy, but yeah.
I think it's, as I said, I think it's going to be one of this year's hits, and I've seen lots of people already taking it up and playing from various, social media posts around the world. So I think it's going to be circulated enough that it's going to get quite a bit of play this year. So we'll see what people think.
It's funny on that point though as well, right? So I know when this was kickstarted, which was about a year ago or maybe even more, it hit BGA pretty quickly. Maybe even while the campaign was on.
Mm-hmm. It was while the campaign was on.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think a lot of people jumped on there. And I remember a lot of people, even on our podcast, were saying, Sarah, you may have been leading the charge here, was, saying jump on and learn Carnegie. It's a really good game. I wonder how much that's affected the hype that the actual game hitting desks will affect.
Yeah.
You avoided playing it?
Yeah, because I didn't want to spoil it. I wanted to play it on the table.
I did exactly the same thing.
For sure. Because what if, and then it sort of then plays into your psyche of, I've gone and backed this game and I don't actually like it. Whereas if you've got it on the table that it's been delivered, you've at least had that whole fulfillment process to be able to have enjoyment out of it. Whereas if you've gone and played it and be like, oh my God, I backed this game and I don't know if I actually like it, then that anticipation is replaced with dread, and you're having to explain to someone that you've spent all this money on a game you're probably not going to play. Now, I know not everyone's like me, and where they if they don't like a game, they'll tend to sell it or move it on or do a trade or whatever. But I definitely was like, I'm not playing this on BGA, no way. But I was also really thrilled with all the people that had played it, like yourself, Sarah, and said, this game is really good, like really, really good. And I was like, well, that's cool. That means that I'm probably going to enjoy it too.
I think they were just so confident in the design that they were like, you know what, we're going to put this on BGA, people are going to play it and they're going to like it. And I think that was a really good call, but I definitely agree with everything you said if someone did play it on there. And you know what, learning a game on BGA sometimes will put you off a game even though it shouldn't, right? So I think it was a gamble. I think it was a brave thing to do, but yeah, I really think it showed that they were so, they were behind the design 100%. And I think they should have been, because it was great.
But as someone who did that, right? As someone who jumped on board and played it quite a bit on BGA before it actually came out, and it's now hit, how do you find the experience is in now getting a game that you're quite experienced with and you haven't even cracked the seal necessarily yet, versus a game that you get to crack the seal and learn straight away? Or what's the difference that you've experienced with those two different scenarios?
Well, I still haven't got my copy of Carnegie yet. So I'm still waiting, and everyone is like, I've got that like FOMO thing because everyone's cracking open their games and I haven't got mine yet.
Jeez, I'd be getting onto someone that should be there by now.
Yeah, I mean, that is a different feeling, isn't it? Like when you don't know what's coming and you're like, oh, this could be amazing. But like you said, you could be bitterly disappointed as well. So yeah, it's not as exciting, but it's like ordering a game that you know you love.
Yeah,
or an expansion to a really game. Nice. You're like, I can't wait to have more of it. More.
Yes.
Yeah.
More. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's Carnegie.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll start to see more and more of that around the traps. I have to play Harry again because he cheated last time.
He would not do something like that.
Inadvertently. It was an unintentional cheat. Man. And so we'll have to look. I'm like Def. I'm keen to get it to the table with a few people. It was just myself and Harry, so we did have that third player sort of blocking thing out there to take up some of the spaces. But yeah, I agree. I think to play it at 3 or 4 would be definitely an interesting experience to see how all those interactions go. I think it's a lot more potential interaction than you would normally see in a lot of Euros.
That was so funny, by the way, when you were playing with Harry, because Harry messaged me to say, just want to check a rule, da 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 da, and then I responded, and then you just wrote he cheated in a separate DM.
Oh yeah, no, it was all good. It was all good. So Connor, have you been playing any games lately? I mean, what's been happening down in the Bull?
Down in the Bull, we're trying to escape this terrible weather that I've been talking about. I have actually a couple of weekends ago. I want to talk about a game because I know, Mitch, that you were one of the first people to play Wordle that I knew, right? Because you were putting all the squares up, right? And I was like, what is this alien language that he's doing, right? Anyway, but I know Sarah is a reasonably big fan of this game too, and that is Letter Jam. And I just wanted to quickly talk about Letter Jam because it's pretty much Wordle, the board game. Which people go, isn't that Scrabble? No, don't be silly. That Scrabble's not Wordle, or it's not words with friends or anything like that. Because effectively, what you're doing is it's like a game where you put the card on your head, and everyone can see who you are, but you've got no idea, and you've got to ask questions. Because what someone then does is you sit in a circle, and everyone's got a letter, and you have to come up with a word that's using all the letters, and you kind of go, oh, I've got a really good clue. It can help 4 or 5 people. I don't have to use the bonus letters, or I don't have to use the asterisks, all this stuff. And everyone's like, oh, that sounds really good. We'll use that. And you have to be vague-ish because you can't be like, if we were playing together, I can't say, oh, I've got a word that's definitely going to help Mitch. You can't say things like that, but I could be like, it helps 3 people. It uses 2 of our letters and so on and so forth. But yeah, I was just getting mad Wordle vibes from this because you're sitting there going, oh, I've got all these letters and I know that, so what's my word? And it's, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, the base of word that you get and have to figure out is 5 letters as well. Is that right?
So it is 5 letters.
We were playing, the other weekend I was playing with my family and they're like, oh yeah, this is great. This is really, really good. And we probably haven't had that from a party. I'm doing my little inverted commas
quotation marks
party game in a while, like in a long while. And I remember finishing it, and my mum's, just doing happy to play games, but sometimes ends up a bit lukewarm on them, and goes, oh no, I need this game, like I need it.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, so she was in on it. She's an English RE teacher, so she was like totally like down with it. But Sarah, you're a pretty big fan of this too, hey?
Yeah, there's a reason why it gets played the most at our game days. Like, it is so much fun. I really like it. It's so I played that this week as well, and I played it with my regular weekly game night. And Dean comes. Dean was like, he was so good at this. He was like, 8-letter word. I've got an 8-letter word clue.
Now, what?
How do you keep getting 8-letter word clues? He's like a freaking, genius at this. He's like
a walking
letter
dictionary.
jam prodigy. Yeah, he was so good at it. And I think there was only one letter that there was one word that I got. I was like convinced it was thumb. So the letters I had were TH something, which was my letter, then the wild, and then B. And I'm like, oh, it's thumb. So I've got U. But I do remember that James was like, oh, this is a bit of a rude word, right? And clearly my mind isn't dirty enough. Or I was like, thumb, how is that dirty? That's weird. What are you doing with your thumb? Like, so we were all laughing. We were in hysterics the whole time we played this, by the way. And we really didn't stick to adult words. It was only for that one. So anyway, his word was throb. Okay. It was throb. And I thought it was thumb. And so I had this U and I couldn't get my word to work with the U in it. So it took forever to find out at the end that, oh, right, it's throb. Yeah. Now I get it. And now I get why it was dirty. Yeah. Now I understand. And so I got my word. Everyone else had their word already. They were just waiting for me to figure out where I'd gone wrong. And we had another funny moment. Like, we were laughing in hysterics through this whole thing, just at people's clues and at what people thought words were. And I did this word and I thought it was really good. And I used everyone's letter, and it was I think I used Kerry's letter 3 times, right? Her letter 3 times, because you can use it multiple, right? And she's like, she couldn't figure out what it is. And I'm like, and I probably shouldn't say this, it's probably cheating, but I'm like, you will know what this word is. This is an easy clue or something, which is probably cheating. I don't think I meant to say that, right? But but she's like, is it baboos? Baboos? I'm like, what is baboos? It was tattoos, right? She had a T. So it was just funny. We were just, oh man, it was like, it should be easy. It's one of those things where you find out what a word is and you're like, oh.
100%.
Of course it is.
100%. So we had a similar thing happen because, so it was all of us. So my sister, my 2 brothers, my mum and my niece and me. And we quite often give my youngest brother a hard time because he either doesn't quite listen to the rules or he tries to stretch the rules to suit him, or we'll be like, that is the stupidest. Why would you ever come up with that? Anyway, he's like, oh, I've got a word. 100% got a word. And he gives the word, and I had gotten to the same point. So I'd had a couple of, not dicey, but I'd obviously gotten a bit wrong. And I'm like, what is this word? What word have you given me? I was just looking at it, like staring at him going, you've stitched me up here. This is the bane of my game now. This is terrible.
Like, he's given you a word in another language.
Yeah. But what was really doing my head in is, in most cases, like, we're on the same page and be like, nah, I don't know. Come on, that was pretty crap. Like, that wasn't very good. And everyone's like, yeah, no, that was a great word. Yep, great word. So I'm sitting there going, he stitched me up here. He's and I'm like, I'm stewing for ages. And I pretty much blamed my entire loss of the game on him. Yeah. And then when it came down to it, his word was great. His word was actually really, really good. But same thing as you, I had not realised what my letter was before, and I'd gone, it was past the point of no return. I could not then
you were fixated on it.
And I was like, no, and again, because he was the one that gave me the 5-letter word, I was like, well, you've misspelt it. Because I think I'd thought he'd given me spouse, right?
Oh, okay.
But then I think he'd end up giving me powers. So I was like, spouse isn't spelled that way. Spouse has like an extra ill. Anyway, so and then he was like, and then he goes, no, your word was power. And then by the time I'd flipped my cards up, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's a good word. And I had to like begrudgingly be like, yeah, no, well played. That was pretty good.
And this is the thing too. You can, if you get really good at this game, which I can't imagine I ever will, but you can actually add more letters to your guess word. So you can end up having more and more letters with the same amount of clue tokens given. So that's basically the end of the game, is when you've run out of clues, right? Or if everyone's guessed what their letters are, or if you run out of clue tokens in the middle. So so you can actually give everyone like a 7-letter word. So it's 2 extra letters for everybody, and then use the same amount of clues. Which I would like to do just for a challenge, but I mean, it's already pretty challenging.
Oh, right? Yeah. And we actually played it. We played it, so 4-player with the two like not character ones. So each time you use them, you get to recycle them and choose another letter. But then we found it really challenging with the 2 extra people, because it's like you haven't guessed your letter yet, so we're stuck with the same letter. And I'm trying to think. It reminds me of another game. Oh, I'm really like a probably like a Decrypto or like a Codenames where people are stuck on it, and you're like, I don't know what other clue I can give you. I don't know what other word I can make to help you guess your letter. And it actually gets like frustrating in a good way because like, okay, how can I be creative? What can I use to help them and help everyone else? But you're a bit like, oh, I don't know my letter, and I still don't know my letter, and everyone else is like 3 letters down. You're like, oh man,
and it does happen a little bit as well.
Is it one of those games that kind of people need to buy into? Like you have to kind of be into the vibe of it, and you can get.
I think so. I think you have to.
Word
games,
and it kind of at the beginning, I probably didn't do a great job of explaining it, but people were like, well, what am I actually doing? And then you have to kind of have like a dummy round where you know what the letter is, or everyone knows what the letter is. So you kind of do a dummy round and then get into the real game. I guess that's probably the best way of doing it. If I had my time again, that's what I'd do, as opposed to trying to do it in game and explain, because you obviously don't know what your letter is, and not everyone can see what's going on. So, yeah, Def, you haven't played this, have you?
No, I haven't, but sounds like something that the girls would enjoy. So, definitely something to think about.
Yeah, and like kind of like what you were saying, Sarah. Like you could have like letter jam,
adult version after dark.
Yeah, after
letter
dark.
Jam after dark.
Letter jam, Jackson Pollock. But yeah, we've talked about doing things like and having Nintendo characters, or doing it for like Marvel or things like that, and just having a theme. That
cool.
way you can at least look. And I think the most stressful part has been like, I don't have any letters to make the word for my person. I don't know what word, or like if they're going to know what this word is. But because I guess like Wordle, 5-letter words are pretty common, and I guess that's why they picked the 5-letter words, and they're not going to be super niche. They're not going to be, I have no idea what that word is. My 9-year-old niece, she's pretty switched on. I don't know how she's related to me, I don't know, but she's pretty switched on, and that she was able to get the words. Like she was fine, and she knew what she was doing.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough.
And because it's all like it's cooperative.
Yes.
Even if someone is potentially like not the strongest with their vocabulary or something, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like you said, the stats don't lie, Sarah, and it commonly turns up as one of the most borrowed games from our game library on game day. So it's a good one to get out there. I dare
say it's my favourite word game.
Yeah,
I think it's better than just one. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's more thinky than just one.
Yeah, I think so.
It's the gamer's word game.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But no, it's seriously good. If you haven't tried it, you should.
Check it out. Letter Jam.
Yeah,
cool. All right, well, before we finish up the discussion, there was one other... there's been a bit of talk lately, the last week or so, around crowdfunding. In particular, a couple of big sort of popular campaigns that have had to withdraw for whatever reason, and it's caused a lot of discussion around the board gaming hobby, and just in terms of what's required to sort of run a big campaign like that, what the goal limits that people set, or these publishers set, their funding targets, the effects of shipping, and the way things are going in the world at the moment with ocean shipping and so on. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity, and I think a few of you guys have been involved in that. May want to just chip in and have a discussion around how that's all played out, because it's been a bit of a hot topic this week. So did any of you back Anunakai or Uthia?
Yeah, I funnily enough backed both of them.
Because it's your fault.
It is my fault. Yeah, I wasn't vocal enough.
You broke the internet.
Yeah. Not one man can have so much plastic. Yeah. But I think me and Sarah both, full disclosure, although I don't feel like we need to disclose it, but we play tested Anunakai and were pretty boisterous in how good we thought it was, and obviously there's been some decisions made on the production side that I think might have caused it to maybe not be as popular as or not necessarily as popular, but the cost was just seemed really, really high compared to what we played. I know we played on TTS, and I know we were able to be shown a few different things. But yeah, like that sort of caught me by surprise, the overall cost of the game, which has obviously had an effect on whether it's funded or not.
It's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because, like you said, we played sort of this amazing design that we absolutely loved. We didn't play a fancy looking version of it, and I would, like me being, the beige queen or whatever, like I don't really care about minis and stuff like that. I could easily have gone without all that stuff. And to be honest, I don't mind paying a premium for a game that I think is a really awesome design that I'm going to play over and over again.
Yeah.
So I probably would have paid that for a Nunakai if it was cubes. To be honest, like, so that doesn't really bother me. Like, I would rather have like a curated collection of games that I really love, and I don't mind spending more on them. So I think for me, the price point thing wasn't really an issue, and I'm sure it was for a lot of people. And so I'm just wondering whether there is some way, like marketing way of getting around that, because it's not like it's the most expensive game. I mean, geez, I can't even remember what I paid for Gloomhaven, and that didn't have minis, it just had standees, right?
Well, the Simon campaigns, the big Zombicide things with all those thousands of minis, probably
and they are
higher
so
in
expensive.
terms of price.
Yeah. I know that there was some talk about not being able to sort of have add-ons and have like different tiers. There was only really the 2 tiers. It was like you have everything or you have base.
Yeah.
And apparently that, people didn't like that so much, and wanted to be more mid. Sorry, Def.
No, I was just going to say, I think you're right, about the perceived value of the game. I'm a very good example of, I don't know how big this sort of audience is within the board game industry, but I don't really care how much a game costs if the design is great, because that's my whole thing. I like to replay my games again and again, right? I've played Gaia Project, Conor, we're discussing this last week, like 70 times or whatever. It doesn't really, I could have paid $500 for it. It's still more value than any other game in my collection because of so many times. So I don't particularly, unless there is something very specific. So I wonder, though, if that is the same, with most of the people that want to buy a game. And I think these 2 games, Anunnaki and Euthia, had a slightly different starting point, if you like. Because Cranio's game was, as you say, Sarah, it was shared with playtesters. There was some great initial feedback. A lot of, classic Euro gamers like you loved the game. And yet, when the campaign launched, it was almost like it was mismarketed, almost like it was, and, not trying to sound arrogant talking from the outside, but this is just from a, if you prefer to call it from a customer's potential customer's perspective, it was almost as if the game did not know what it was. Was it a big sprawling filled with minis game, or was it a Euro? And I feel that if you go back and look at the campaign, even the campaign page was like having an identity crisis, because the first thing you look at when you scroll down the campaign was the miniatures. I can
spinning around, right? Spinning around and around.
I can guarantee you that everybody that's play tested this game cares 0 to very little about the miniatures. And it doesn't mean that they're not good in the game. It just means that it creates confusion around what is this. And, all the subsequent problems, I feel, are coming out of that. Not that, it was expensive or whatever else. And the other thing that I personally was very opposed to when I saw it, and it did, affect me initially backing off, was the fact that there was this whole bunch of add-ons for other games, completely irrelevant, as part of this campaign that you could add, but then those would be shipped separately with separate shipping charges from Italy. So it felt like a completely unnecessary, different, like, it confused the campaign even more. With Euthia, though, was a completely different thing, because the game, it was being out for a reprint, right? It's been out for a couple of years, and it had received a fantastic following from the community. It's been well received. It's been played a lot. People have loved it. There's heaps of gameplay content for it, as opposed to an Unakai where there wasn't much. And it's all looking really great. And there we had that, you mentioned it, Mitch, we had a funding goal that was very low, and the game completely smashed the funding goal on the first day or whatever. And then 3-4 days into the campaign, the game got cancelled and the company folded, because I'm assuming that's because that was their only, they don't have a retail business or whatever. So that was their only potential revenue stream. And I think that's where the discussion comes about how viable are these things, from companies that are actually using crowdfunding for what it's meant to be. We know Simon and Awaken Realms and even Eagle Griffon can probably fund these games themselves, right? They're using the crowdfunding platforms as a pre-order system, which is still fine. But some of these smaller companies, groups of individuals that are creative and have a great passion and build something great, then they need, 10,000 backers. Otherwise, it's not financially viable. So, yeah.
I get my big worry, kind of like what Sarah was saying with the Nunakai, is, I'd probably agree with Sarah if they had said, we're just going to be using cubes, or we're just going to be using standees, or we're just going to be using flags, or something that wasn't miniatures that would have been very easy to produce. I don't think they would have lost any people buying into the game. And I think now, what Kickstarter used to do, when they're delving too deep into it, lots of the highest selling, Gloomhaven aside, the highest backed, I say selling, they didn't sell anything, but the highest backed games were those with lots of minis. And I know when I first started looking at Kickstarter, coming from a Warhammer background and knowing how expensive miniatures are, going, oh my God, you're selling me all these minis for like less than it cost me for some figures? Like, that was incredible. And I think it's actually now gone back the other way, and that people have said, well, I don't know the quality of this game because all I'm seeing are these miniatures. And I feel like all I'm doing is buying the miniatures. I'm not buying a game. And unfortunately for both Euthia and Anunakai, they have suffered from that, because people just said, oh, look, I'm not getting it because it just looks like a whole bunch of bloated minis, where the minis were such a small portion of their game. You could have had the Gloomhaven standees for both of those games.
That's an excellent point, and reminds me the ISS Vanguard campaign from last year that Awaken Realms did. And I mean, Awaken Realms is, I would argue, the best in the business for, selling and marketing a big, filled with plastic miniatures game. And their campaigns have smashed it out of the park every single time, right? So these guys know what they're doing. And yet in their last campaign, in their most hyped game so far, which was ISS Vanguard, they took the option of offering the miniatures as a separate add-on rather than included in the game. They said, here's the core game at $130 or whatever. If you want the miniatures, it's another $100. Here you go. $80 if you take it up as a bundle or whatever. But it was the first time these guys did this. And I was so surprised by that I think it should have sent some messages across the industry to the rest of the creators. And I think you're right. At the end, people want to feel that they're buying into a good design, a good game that will be replayed, and they don't get that from a bunch of miniatures. I mean, you have a massive following around, people that like to paint and all that, and the miniatures are great for them. But then that's how you approach these campaigns.
It would be interesting to know, though, because even though the flexibility and having the various options for your backers is obviously going to broaden your market and the amount of people that are interested, because you'll cover sort of more people's desires. And I know I, for one, am not a huge fan of miniatures because I don't paint them, and then they just look like grey plastic on my board every time I play. So I personally would rather have some nice artwork on some standees as opposed to miniatures. But that said, you have to then ask the question, well, in terms of manufacturing, what does that do to your costs? Because now you've got to produce multiple products. Mm-hmm. You're now producing one, SKU with miniatures in it, one without, one with standees, one with, and that's not necessarily viable either, because you may then need a minimum of each of those different product types, as opposed to just having a minimum print run of whatever your one product type is.
That's a excellent point.
And you've touched on something else, Mitch, there as well, is that there are kind of two types of gamers. There are, and of course, there's a blending of both. I like games with minis and I like Euro games. But, you have like Euro gamers and then you have miniature gamers and war gamers. Then you want to appeal to both of those, but actually they like different kinds of games. So you have this game that you're calling a 4X Euro, and that's kind of like trying to capture the 100% of gamers, and it's actually turning them both off. Like it's turning off miniature gamers.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And it's turning off Euro gamers. Yeah. And so I think it does the opposite of what it sets out to do.
It's the old jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Which is such a shame, because obviously I really like the game with the new Nikai.
I was 100% going to back Youthia, and I was looking really forward to it, and then it got cancelled. Yeah. So I think it's a lot of disappointment.
We were both talking about that, Def, and we would be like, oh man, I need to stop watching videos about this game because I'm going to spend so much money on it. And again, I was like, okay, it's going to cost, I think it was in euros, and GameFound converts, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm happy to cop that. And
it wasn't super expensive.
No, it was, for what you, it wasn't cheap. What you were getting. But I think what I'm most disappointed in is the fact that company has now folded, and you're not going to be able to get that game anymore. 100%. I guess with Cranio and Unikai, they're going, whether that goes back to crowdfunding, which I assume it will, or they're going to have it as a release from retail, they've still put the effort into the product, right? Whereas, I think is it Die Games?
Dia Games.
I hadn't heard of them before they made Youthia, so they're obviously a really small company, relying on the GameFound crowdfunding to be successful for them to continue making games, and unfortunately they haven't. So that, for me, that's the me missing out on a game. Okay, so what? I'm missing on lots of games, but that's probably the saddest part for me, is them now going under.
I think it's a good opportunity though for us as consumers in this hobby to sort of take a step back and realize the finest of lines that some of these independent publishers run at. These are people that have put their whole lives, they've probably sacrificed a lot of their own personal money to pursue these goals, and that it's a very fine line between success and total failure, and it's not necessarily any particular fault of their own. It's just how it is, So looking at Youthia and understanding what they've gone through, and that they've had to basically close down the company now, sort of has given me pause to say maybe we should be a little bit more accepting of some of the issues that these publishers face, and a bit more understanding of, as consumers, you see people firing up all the time and getting outraged about things that have happened, and publishers and designers doing this and that and whatever. I think we should all be a little bit more tolerant of each other and understand that, it's not an easy game that these people are in, and it's more about their passion and their love for the hobby than anything else.
Well, if I've taken anything away from that conversation, it's the fact that you are going to be more tolerant of people, Mitch, which I think is a win for everyone everywhere.
Hey, I never said I was going to tolerate more people. All right. Let's not go crazy. I am the most imposing one after all, aren't I, Sarah?
I did not say that. And it's recorded, so the proof is recorded.
Oh, dear. All right, folks. Well, unless anyone else has anything else they'd like to add
Does
to
anyone
our...
have like a positive crowdfunding story?
Yeah, who's crowdfunding something exciting?
Carnegie delivered. That was good. Like Carnegie delivered.
Yeah, sure. True.
Carnegie delivered, and
well, for you guys, it did.
well,
yeah, that's true. And Age of Steam is back on Kickstarter.
More maps.
And a new deluxe box to match the rest of the Eagle Griffin games catalog.
Yeah.
For people that have severe OCD and want to have exactly the same size of boxes from the same publisher, this is our opportunity.
And I know that Def and I reach out to each other pretty much every day now, just saying, "Have you got Burncycle yet?"
Oh,
Burncycle.
Yep. Yeah.
Burncycle arrived.
We can't.
I backed that as well.
Yeah.
Is that
you backed it as well?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, there you go.
So we're all on the Burncycle bandwagon.
Well, I'm actually not on the Burncycle bandwagon. All of my Too Many Bones is part of the Burncycle, like the fleet that's coming. So yeah.
So did you get into the pledge manager?
The $15
not buy Burncycle, but bought Too Many Bones instead.
Yep. That's what I did. Because I didn't know they were releasing what's the last one?
Unbreakable.
Yeah, I would have waited, and then hey,
sure you would have.
I wouldn't have waited. No.
All right. Well, I've got to tell you something that's like, it's going to sound really sad, but it's actually kind of funny because it's not a sad story. It's fine. But there's been so many Kickstarters that I backed, like, to play stuff with Mark, and because Kickstarters take so long to arrive, we've actually separated in that time. And so I won't be playing them with Mark. But, like, that's something I never thought about. And I thought about it the other day and I'm like, oh, man, there's still so many games that I backed to play with him.
2-player only games. In particular.
Yeah, like Burncycle is one of them because it's co-op. So I guess I'll be playing it, like, solo. But I keep, like, trying to rope in Kerry to play. Like, Kerry's playing Aeon's End Legacy with me, which is awesome. Okay. And also that box is so huge that I've like got it. I'm just like, Kerry, can I keep it here? I don't want to keep bringing it to your house.
If I'm going to play it there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's something to think about, everyone. When you're backing kicks. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but
when you're moving house and
sad and lonely like me and Mitch, it doesn't matter because you don't have anyone to play with to start with.
You back them to play by yourself anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I've just joined your team then. Solo. Team solo.
Team solo. Woohoo. Michael will be the only one playing with friends before too long. We'll get him. All right. So with that, we will wrap up our discussion this evening and we'll move on to the bracket.
Hi everyone, Conor here. Just want to take a sec to talk about one of our sponsors, 2D6 Games up in Brisbane. 2D6 support this podcast, and Dan, Dave and Joe are a great community-focused team who are always present at our game days. They offer free shipping Australia-wide, which is an incredible bonus. They also directly support the Brisbane Game Day, so if you're ever at a Brisbane Game Day, drop into their store and say hello.
All right, so moving into this episode's bracket battle, brought to you by Game Toppers, who I believe are going to be launching another Kickstarter campaign soon, so look out for that. We will be resolving the battle that's been going down for the last week, and that is Brass Birmingham versus Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy. Now, I know, Sarah, you've got a pretty big stake on Eclipse in this one.
Well,
you're a big
actually,
Eclipse fan.
I think I voted for Brass because Eclipse dropped out of my top 10, you guys.
Yeah,
Eclipse
right.
dropped out of my top 10 and Brass is still in there. So, yeah, I went for Brass.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but did you use your account or did you use the Board Game Barbecue account to place that vote?
Why do I keep getting blamed for this? Actually, I think we've all been doing that a little bit. I busted Mike. I busted Mike tonight. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it was Mike. I'm happy to say it was Mike.
Probably Mike.
Yeah, and if he's not here to defend himself, it's Mike.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So, Def, I think you're on the Brass bandwagon.
You mean for this walk in the park of a battle? Yes.
It's not fun anymore, you don't have to bring the fight in words.
Yeah, that's true.
It's over.
I really enjoy both games, but I think I posted it on Facebook. Eclipse is a great game, but Brass just on a different level.
Right.
Tell your joke, Mitch. Tell your joke.
Oh, you ruin it now. It's going to crash and burn. I can't do it anymore. Oh dear. So I will put everybody out of the misery.
Yeah.
And thanks for Sarah to alluding that it was a total eclipse for the brass.
Yes, I ruined the joke. I ruined it
completely. That was absolute comedy gold.
Wow.
Dave Chappelle would have been proud. The scores on that one was brass 253 to Eclipse 89. Possibly one of the most lopsided ones we've had this battle. That's huge.
It is lopsided.
We do have a lot of people who brass is their favourite game, and they defend it. I love the fact that they do this. They defend it within an inch of their own lives. So, hey, big ups to them, man. That's cool.
Yeah, it is indeed. So brass will move on, and Eclipse will pass between the moon and the sun.
When will we see it again?
Another 100 years? I don't know. It's gone.
I'm shaking my head.
Which I need Dan on here. He's the only one that throws out worse dad puns, isn't he, than I am? All right, so the next battle is going to be up, which is a bit of a biggie. And I don't know how you all feel about this one. I think I know where Connor sits. I think I know where Sarah sits. Maybe you'll all be on the same side. The two going up head-to-head tonight are the behemoth known as Wingspan versus the coin game wannabe Root.
The coin game for everyone.
Coin game wannabe?
I think you'll find.
Well, it's a coin game wannabe, isn't it?
It's not a wannabe. It's a coin game for everyone. So you're not sitting through learning about the bloody revolution in Cuba. Like, I'll learn about the revolution in Cuba. Oh, what? You're telling me I can play? Anyway, this isn't Root versus a coin game, so I'm not going to get too fired up. But I will say, this is the first time in the whole bracket I've actually been nervous about Root not winning. I think this every time I'm like, there's no way Root will lose this game. Like the pure arrogance I've had has definitely been tempered. When I was like, Wingspan, I was like, because that game's pretty popular.
Wingspan wins everything.
I know.
Everyone knows that, It's got win in its name.
I will say, I think it has cooled, though. When it came out, which was kind of like the first year we started doing this, it won everything. It was like Lord of the Rings. How Lord of the Rings just won every Oscar. It won Best Animated Film. Like Lord of the Rings won that many Oscars. And Wingspan was a bit the same. But I do think it's cooled. But it also had lots of expansions that came out really quick. You had the European expansion and then the Aussie expansion.
Yeah.
So until they make the dragon version of Wingspan, I think it probably
the dragon
which
version.
Let's face it, that would be pretty dang cool.
That would be cool.
Or the Pokemon one. Like if they made a Pokemon Wingspan, oh my god. Like that would be it. And then it could just infinitely have expansions for be like, this is the Johto region. This is the I'm probably you two, Def and Mitch have no idea what I'm talking about. But
Let's
Sarah
get back on track, shall we?
Anyway, yes, Root gets would get my nod. Clearly.
Right. How about you, Def? You all over the Wingspan or?
Yeah, coincidentally we just played that yesterday and had great fun. But I do think that it has, a specific sort of lifespan to make a pun with its name. But I think it's been so successful for a reason, and that reason is still there. It's still a great game, and almost everybody can play it. But my vote would go to Root as well for its innovative design and all the rest of the stuff that it brings. And ultimately it's the game I would prefer to play if it was on the table. So, which is the criteria we're voting with, right?
And for you, Sarah, I've never really heard you, be a massive fan of Root, but I think I've heard you be a little bit cold on Wingspan.
A little bit cold. Yeah, that's pretty much right. I really like Root, actually. I really do like Root.
Wingspan's got too many colours for Sarah, that's why.
No, Wingspan, okay. I really like tableau building games. I love Race to the Galaxy. I love Seasons. I love Res Arcana. There are so many amazing tableau building games. And for me, Wingspan was like a major disappointment, like for how much hype and stuff and all the awards it was getting. It didn't do it for me. I couldn't find like many synergies and exciting combos or anything. Like it was just a bit meh for me. And people are like, you just don't like birds. And I'm like, I like birds. How dare you? But no, so Root, I think on the other end, Root, it can be, if it's taught well, I think that is a real, I don't know, that's kind of like a sore topic.
Yeah, don't ask Connor to teach you. He's terrible at it. Terrible.
Right. I've gotten over it.
Bit of a
Jules.
Jules, shake fist. But yeah, if you have a really good teacher, because obviously, like if you're teaching that game, you have to spend a lot of time with everyone to make sure that they all understand what their factions can do. And when you have that, it's like, wow, I was really impressed straight away. I really loved it. I played the birds to start with, so I had that really cool thing where you're like building up so many actions. Look at all the things I can do.
Def,
oh wait, now I'm in turmoil or something.
What do we say?
Yeah.
Never let the birds win. Never ever let the birds win.
There's a reason I lost that
forest.
I
don't think I have.
I don't think I've won the birds either.
Maybe I have. I'm not sure. I'll have to check PG stats. But yeah, I think it's really fun. I think it's so fun to just add all the different factions. I think the river dudes, I think they have a hard time. I really think they have a hard time.
At the retreat last year, and it was difficult because
you have to be
it's
a
one of those
salesperson.
factions, where if you don't push for something, other players won't come and use your stuff. So it becomes a bit of it has to match your personality for sure.
Yeah, if you're a telemarketer, then be the Otters.
But I also think if you're playing with people who are savvy and know how valuable certain cards are or movement and knowing, for example, if paying the river folk will let you get closer to winning by domination, then that's right. You can just jack up that price. Or if there's particular cards, or if you're a faction that needs soldiers, then you can use them to help you out. So it's definitely one that you wouldn't give it to someone learning the first game. Like, let's face it, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah. I think accidentally let someone win.
I think we also discovered the reason why I think Root might actually win this one, because Wingspan's a great game and you'll get an equal amount of, satisfaction as you play it over time. But the reward that you get by playing Root repeat times increases over time.
Oh, yeah.
So
where do you think it's going to fall then, Connor? You back in Root again? You think it's going to get there?
I've got it, man. These colours don't run. Like, you've got it, yeah.
These colours don't run.
It is bolted on to, it could be anywhere in my top 3 games. Like, really. It's not going to fall out of it. I can't see it because you're probably sick and tired of me talking about it. But for the reasons that Def said, the more you play it, the more intricacies you see. And effectively, you sort of made a joke about it before, but it's got me interested in coin games for that reason, because I can see the parallels between Root and it's more complex, I guess, cousins in the coin game. So, Root for sure.
Def? Root?
I think it's got a real shot. Now that Wingspan's been out for some time, I think Root's got a real shot at this.
Sarah?
Wingspan.
I think Wingspan's going to win as well.
Root.
No,
I hope
I would personally vote for Root myself.
Yeah.
But I think Wingspan's going to win.
Okay. You reckon? I don't know.
So if you're saying if you had to put money on one, you would put money on Wingspan.
Yep.
That's fair enough.
I think that's how I'd go.
In our community, I think Root. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, it's not up to us. It's up to the community. So get out there and vote. Look for the socials. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. It's on Discord. It's everywhere. If you're super keen, you can vote in all platforms. And if you're Mike, you can even use the barbecue logo to vote twice.
We'll give you the login and you can vote for your one.
And with that, we will move on to our final segment, the Oaths.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah here. I want to talk a little bit about one of our sponsors who has sponsored the podcast from the very beginning, and that is Advent Games. AdventGames.com.au is an Australian board game store. This is the store where I get all of my games from, so you know that I'm not just advertising it just because. This is very personal to me. And Dean, who runs it, is very knowledgeable about games. He is a huge board gamer himself, and he often gives advice and things like that, and just awesome all-round customer service. So all around New South Wales, you can get flat rate shipping from adventgames.com.au for $10. If you're somewhere else in Australia, you can get flat rate shipping for $15, not that much more. And if you are super local, you can even see Dean at Chatswood on Tuesday nights to pick up games from him, from his very paws. So that is adventgames.com.au. Thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast.
Before we get into the O's, we will just mention that we would like to thank all of our Patreon supporters for supporting the show. Without them, we would not be able to do this today. So we do really appreciate it. We appreciate that a lot of them are also in our community. We get to talk to them a lot. And if you can't support us via Patreon, that is completely understandable. It is not required. But any support you can show us, i.e. by even giving us a review on any of the podcast apps that you can do that would help us a lot. Or even if you just come along and join us on our Facebook community or in our Discord community and just be a part of everything that we do so we can get to know you and you can make our community a better place to be. That would be very much appreciated. So thanks to everyone who contributes in one way or another, and we really do appreciate it a lot. So,
thank you.
No problem.
Wanted to add my little thank you. Not you.
Not you. So moving into the oaths then, shall we kick off with Sarah?
I guess so. Sorry, you said that really weird. Okay.
You were on not too long ago, I think.
It's been a while because I moved and
it
has been a little while.
Fair enough.
I had two, and they were both kind of long ones because one of them was the Smoky Valley, which I just wanted to play a lot more because it's a complex game. So I kind of thought I'd give myself a bit longer to get that done. I want to play with 3 or 4 players. I'm hoping I can take it to Chatswood this week and play it with 4. We'll see if I can rope people in.
Right.
So that one's still going. That's an ongoing one. The other one was Jaws of the Lion, which I wanted to play with my son. And of course today it's Mother's Day when we're recording this. So I cashed in on that. And I did say to Sultan, that's it. You're playing Jaws of the Lion with me. And it was really epic. We had just this incredible end to the scenario. We had to beat this boss, and I have this card. I'm the demolitionist, and I had a card that was attack of 3. But if you're attacking the objective, and in this case I was going against the boss, add an extra 3. And I'd already blessed myself a bunch in the scenario, #blessed life. And one of those blessings came up. So nice. 6 times 2, 12 damage. I one-shotted the boss.
Oh, that's such a good feeling, man.
Oh man.
And the deck system is great, even though
it
does have an auto fail with the curses and all that. And I know you can play without them if you want to, but it comes up so rarely.
Can't.
Well, you can, but you'd be wrong.
You could lose it, drop it on the floor.
But it's funny, the amount of times we've been playing both Core, Gloomhaven, and Jaws, and I'm like, as long as we don't get a -1, we should kill this minion. It's you draw, your blessing out. No, the other way, it's we had nothing to fear. Look at that, we smashed them. Where's the overkill? Where's the bonus points?
Oh dear.
Yeah, we had so much luck in this game. The bad guys kept missing or kept getting -1. It was amazing. And Sultan at the end of it, he was walking away, leaving me to pack up, as kids do. And he was like, that was so much fun. And I'm looking at him what? So that's really excellent. Good. Hopefully you'll play it with me again. So
that's a win-win.
Absolutely. And
so what are you doing next time then?
I saw that Shane in our community posted that he played solos the Death Angel card game, Space Hulk Death Angel card game. I haven't played it in so long, and I love that game. So I'm going to try it and play it again solo.
Excellent.
It's been a couple of years, and I know I lent it to you, and you didn't play it.
I did play it.
Oh, you did play it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah, I played it solo.
Okay, cool.
It's a good game.
It's challenging, right?
Bring out your Space Marines, and there's two sides, and you got to flip them and make sure you're trying to. If you're facing the wrong way, you get smashed by the one behind you. So you
don't want the gene stealers behind you.
Nope.
You do not.
But you can't really avoid it sometimes. You just got to deal with it. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
That's the life in the 40k universe, my friend. It's
true. It's not all bunny rabbits and rainbows.
In fact, I don't think bunny rabbits exist anymore. They're like mutants.
Yes. Probably.
Fair enough. All right. Def, how about yourself, mate?
I had a tough mission because Adrian dragged me into his oath to play 1862, which is like, takes like 20 hours to play. And then my oath was to play a coin game with you lot.
That's right.
And that's like herding cats.
Yeah. Good luck with that, Def. So I'm going to go with my third option, which was to play more of Perseverance, the new Mind Clash game. And I've done that quite a bit, but I'll wait until probably the next episode to talk about it in detail. But that's been really, really great. I've been really enjoying it. I think Mind Clash have done a great job refining their designs and from the previous games. I think I even managed to do a bit of damage with multiple people ordering copies this week.
Did I ever mention how much I despise you, Def? Unbelievable. Caught me at a vulnerable time.
Yes. In terms of the first oath that Adrian dragged me in, I think you've already mentioned that we did play an 18xx. It just wasn't 1862, it was 1860, so close enough.
Yep.
And that was pretty epic. It took like 6.5 hours and had the most crazy ending I've seen in a game. And Adrian said that it felt like almost like horse racing. We were all like standing up and yelling at these train companies from the 1800s. That was a great experience. I'm looking forward to playing more of these games. And so that's where I'm at. Are you
going to sit on the two? Or I think we can let you off the first one. 1860 is close enough to 1862.
It is. And I mean, as far as coin games go, at least I got you to start playing
Andean Abyss.
Andean Abyss. So we'll go with that for now.
Well, I think 6 hours with Adrian is enough penance for anybody, isn't it? Really?
Should Def be credited an oath? Be like, oh man, like you've gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. Like that's.
So the coin game still needs to stay in because I'm really looking forward to playing a couple of these with you guys. So we'll do that. And then along with Perseverance, which is like an ongoing thing because I'm sure I'll play a lot more of it, I want to add a game that is one of the latest games that we bought. Haven't played it yet and have to play this with Timmy. But it's a GMT game. So the oath becomes, let's just use the word complicated. And that is 1960, The Making of the President, which is about the elections of
Kennedy.
1960, JFK versus Nixon. And if you have played Twilight Struggle, the game is based on a similar system of sort of playing cards and trying to gain influence in the various states to collect the votes at the election and stuff like that. It seems pretty straightforward, but like all of these sort of war or political themed GMT games, they're very involved. They take a long time to play. So that's my next oath, 1960.
Okay, interesting. I'm keen to hear how that goes, to be honest. I've seen that on my radar for a while. And how about you, Connor?
Yeah, good. So my oath was to start the latest expansion. Funnily enough, they've announced another one. That's how slow they're coming to Australia, is that this one's just gotten here and they've announced the next one. So, but the Edge of the Earth the investigators I've chosen are Lily Chen and Monterey Jack. And no, He's not based off of a cheese, Mitch.
Do you want to maybe mention what game you're talking about for the listeners?
Arkham Horror Living Card Game.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, you check that off your bingo card if you need to. So this is set, I guess, like the mountains of madness, and you're delving deeper into the mountains, and eventually everyone's going bonkers. They don't know what's going on. But with they've done something cool with these investigators, because in case you haven't heard me splurge about them enough, but you have these archetypes. So you've got seekers, rogues, guardians, survivors, and mystics. But what happens with each of these investigators, they start off as one archetype, and over time you develop them and they become more of a different one. So for example, Monterey Jack, he's a bit shady, so he's a rogue, but he's also a like an archaeologist. So he has the seeker because he's seeking knowledge and he can sort of do a bit more investigating, so he goes down that route. Whereas Lily Chen, she's a mystic, but she's a martial artist, so she wants to be using, she wants to be fighting things off, maybe sort of being a bit of a tank or whatever. But Lily Chen can't use firearms, so she can use all the different types of weapons, but she can't use firearms.
Right.
But she's got this cool thing where she has a discipline. And the discipline's pretty much a buff, and will give her a buff to do maybe pass a test or maybe every time she fights someone. But her weakness is that discipline can become broken, and she loses that until certain situations come up. Whereas Monterey Jack, he's about bouncing between locations and finding clues, even though the rogue doesn't necessarily get clues. The rogue's really cool because he's sort of like they're generally like a jack of all trades, as you said before, but a master of none. So really excited to getting more into this. I won't talk about any of the scenarios because that's not really fair, but it started off well. I'm looking forward to delving into these a bit more. My next oath is a bit of a cheat because I've already teed it up. And I, like months ago, promised to teach our friend who we talk about quite often on the show, Harry.
Well, it's a bit of a cheat. That'll go well with Harry.
Yeah, so that's right. So he'll be fine with it. And he wanted to play, speaking of leader games, one of their games, but Fort. So Fort, yes. I think Fort's great. And, leader games, the games that we've played from them, and I've played with Def in Oath, Root, and Fort. They're all 4-letter words, which is what their thing. But they also use this weird, each of them has something to do with suits and suits of cards and using suits of cards. And Fort does that. I know it's based off another game. I can't remember what that game's called, but it's a reinvention of that game. So, yeah, looking forward to doing that. So, by the next time on the show, I, Conor Devine, will have taught Harry Oath in person. So, not just so that might Mitch going, what? But he lives in Sydney. Yeah, that's right, in person. So
yes, because I believe Harry has booked some flights down for Melbourne game day,
making the trek to Australia's favourite city
next week, which is a good point to raise. That is next weekend. Unfortunately, all the tickets are sold out, so we won't be able to get any more. But and I think Brisbane the following weekend is also sold out. But you know what is not sold out?
The board game barbecue.
Sydney
we haven't sold out yet.
The Sydney game day on June 18th has not sold out. So if you are looking for a game day to get along to and you live anywhere in the southern or northern hemisphere of this planet, you're welcome to come along. It's on June 18th. Check the tickets on Eventbrite. Before I move off, Conor, though, is that all you had,
Yeah,
Conor?
definitely all I had.
Is that all you had?
Do you know what? The more people pressure me into doing something, the less likely I am to do it.
The more you rebel.
The more I'm not going to do it. So
I want to read out this letter I have here from Santa Claus about the promises that you made at Christmas
I didn't make any promises. You're the one that made the promise. You're the one that sent it to me. And for those of you might know, I have Mitch's old copy of loved copy. I'm not saying that old. The original version of Great Western Trail, the classic version, which I still need to play. I'm going to put it out there, Mitch. I don't want to play it solo. So if you can,
you know what? Get Harry to teach you. I taught Harry.
Yeah.
I taught Harry. Oh, jokes aside, I taught Harry, and Harry loves it because it's a fantastic game. So when he's down in Melbourne, if you've got the time after you play Fort,
but we're going to play Macaraibo, which is a way better game. So
Oh, Mitch, you got a rule wrong from Great Western Trail.
No, shush, let's move on.
Really, yeah, you can't be mad at Harry about Carnegie.
No, back onto... let's forget about that. Moving
back on the oaths that Mitch hasn't done.
Yeah.
Yep. Onto my oath, the most important thing to talk about. Not about me getting rules wrong. My oath from the last episode was to play the film from the Final Girl series, which is Carnival of Blood. And I did tick that box, and I got absolutely obliterated.
No.
Can I just say, I really enjoy these games, but holy hell, I don't think there's a game that I have anyway that plays solo that pumps you up to a point where you think you're doing great, and then in a turn and a half you're dead.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you're rolling a list. I actually got to the point where you get to flip the card over. So if you could save enough hostages, depending on the girl that you're playing, save enough hostages, you can turn it over. You get the special power on the other side because you saved enough hostages. I got to do that this time, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm cranking now. I've got the special ability, and I'm dead.
There's nothing worse than in those games where you're like, I can't wait to use this sweet as bad, and I'm dead. Like he's like, if I had one more turn.
Yeah. Well, the Carnival of Blood has these. He has these puppet minions that come out, and they will act as well as him on each turn. So it's fine to sort of. Well, the game that I played, I was doing a pretty good job of staying away from them and getting the other people to safety. But then in doing that, I think he brings out like one extra minion sort of per turn. So at the start, there's like not that many around. And then all of a sudden, I hadn't been dealing with them. So there's like, is it 3 or 4? I think it's 3 of them on the board plus him. And I was like, oh, okay. So save those people. I've got this special power now. I should try and go and attack them. Oh, they all attacked me at once because they were all in range, and I'm instantly dead. So it's one of those sort of you have to be on it all the way through. If you don't, it'll just suddenly come crashing down on you super hard, and that's what sort of happened. So it was fun, and it was challenging, and it was good variation, some different mechanics in it compared to the other boxes that I've played. But yeah, I ticked the box. It's a good game, and I'm moving on from that oath. So my next oath is one that I kind of touched on earlier in the episode when Sarah was talking about Aeon's End Legacy of Gravehold. In that I have got my daughter kind of interested. She saw the box came in, and we were talking about the artwork, and we were talking about the game, and I was like, you could probably play this one. I'm pretty sure you'd get a hold of it, and it's co-op, so we can play it together. And I was like, how'd you like to have a go at that? And she was like, absolutely. So she's been pretty keen. This weekend being Mother's Day and all, we didn't really get around to playing it, but she's told me she's committed. She's keen to have a go. So my oath, by the next time I'm on the podcast, is to start off the campaign, at least get it started, of Aeon's End Legacy of Gravehold, is it called? Or something like that?
Return to
Gravehold. Aeon's End Legacy, Return to Gravehold. With my daughter. So I think that'll be a good experience if I can get her involved and play that along as well. So that's mine.
Can I just clarify something real quick? Because when you said something about the film, the oath film thing, I went, oh. And I just want to say that I didn't go, oh, because of Final Girl. If anyone heard that, it was because I was so confused that you said film. I'm like, are we doing Are we watching films as our oaths now? That seems like a total cop out. So it was like like that.
Well, I remember when I did make the oath, I couldn't remember what they called each of the segments. Because they've got the little boxes that come for each sort of edition or expansion. And I was like, I'll play the next chapter thingy book expansion thing. And when I actually look at the rules, they refer to them as films.
Which makes sense because
that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, my next oath is to watch Geelong play next weekend. So there we go.
No.
That doesn't count. If you get onto sport, me and Def are going to start talking about the Boston Celtics. Right?
It's not a sports podcast.
It could be.
Yeah, there you go.
Wearing the T-shirt by accident.
So that will bring us to the end of tonight's show. So thanks, everybody, for listening along out there in the world of the internets. And thank you to my co-hosts, Connor, Def, and Sarah. I've had a great time.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you.
And we hope you will be back and listen to the next one. And between now and then, we hope all of your games are sizzling ones.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
getting deliveries here.
Thank God.
of
Oh,
drinks.
scotch.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't
what?
know what this is. It smells funny.
Down in my belly.
Down to my belly. No, it wasn't
looks
my
like
dog. It was
urine.
like the. Yeah, say that while it's in his mouth.
No, this is so the Architects expansion Kickstarter arrived yesterday. Well, we did a group buy through 2D6 Games and arrived yesterday. So I went by Joe's house to pick it up because I was in the area, and he gave me a bottle of Mandarin Cello,
Yeah.
which is like an
like
Italian
limoncello, but
Mandarin.
Mandarin.
Yes.
mandarins. Oh wow,
So it's
Yeah.
a liquor. There you go.
I like limoncello.
There you go.
It's good.
If you're listening, Joe, this is really nice.
And we're out.
Well done.
Did I forget anything?
No,
Yeah.
don't think so.
Just your common sense.
The way you said that, I didn't even look up. Boom. Burn.
No joke.